After forcing the owner to open the safe, the bandits made off with an undisclosed amount of cash and pot. The owner, however, had the opportunity to grab his .357 Magnum and went after the robbers, ordering them to stop. The robbers answered with a volley of gunfire. The owner fired back, mortally wounding one of the assailants. No one else in the establishment was hurt, but the investigators shuddered when they found that 3 slugs were embedded in the wall of a neighborhood apartment complex. Another club, the Health Center on East 14th Street, has reported 2 attempted after-hours burglaries in recent months, including one in which the bandits cut all the wires going into the club and actually cut through the wall of the club with a power saw in an attempt to gain access. It goes on to talk about what the attraction is as far as the amount of cash that's normally on hand in this type of an establishment. It also talks in terms of basically the fact that they're looking at this as a better opportunity than robbing a bank, but maybe having the ability to get either the same result through the cash on hand or by having the product that they can then resell. And it goes on to talk in terms of the difference between a bank and a dispensary. But my conclusion is this is not an operation that I feel is appropriate for our community. I don't think that setting up this type of operation, which is a target and a magnet for this type of criminal activity, is what is in the best interest of our residents. So while I'm very sympathetic on the individual concerns with respect to the need for marijuana, legitimate need apparently for many people, there are these locations that are already available to you, and I understand it's a drive to go to San Leandro, and I understand it's a drive to go to Oakland and San Francisco, but they are there. And so my question right now to me is, yes, it would be more convenient for many of you from San Jose, probably throughout the Bay Area, to come to Mountain View. My position is that this is not what is the best interest of our community, so I will not be supporting this.
Thank you. And just a quick caution, I don't mean to be too pedantic, but as we waited really patiently and listened very intently, asked that you do the same both on ideas that are similar to yours and ideas maybe that are different than the speakers. Thanks. I will go to Councilmember Means.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and talking on this issue. I certainly do emphasize with all the patients that were here tonight and identify with some in terms of their youthfulness and learning disabilities. I also had an aunt and step-aunt in terms of cancer, using cannabis and so forth, and I have to admit I was kind of surprised to see my 70-year-old aunt going over to somewhere on location, which I won't pronounce, and buying marijuana to help. I guess there are a couple issues here, and there's a lot of different issues here trying to resolve. Actually, I won't, and so I kind of tried to re-summarize quickly for it was my turn and try and get through these. Yeah, there is a quandary here. We passed Prop 215, and it's nice for people to say, geez, I think you should get help, but there really wasn't a lot of mechanism there, not of implementation, and then also conflicting with federal law, which unfortunately has not been resolved favorably for state rights. And those of you that believe the Commerce Clause applies to everything, you find yourself in a quandary here because now growing a plant in your backyard or in your house now is subject to regulation by the federal government. And thank God for liberal judges like Rehnquist, O'Connor, and Thomas that recognize the individual's right to choose to put whatever they want in their body and not to be regulated like that. My issue here as an economist, and I heard these arguments tonight, is I always hear arguments of people saying, well, this market's different, and so you have to treat it different. And I'll say, well, for example, and people give me all kinds of arguments. I say, well, people are buying and selling goods and exchanging. It's a market. How is that different, and why should it be treated different? And I have to admit, I didn't hear very many compelling arguments on that tonight. So I guess what I see here is we have a market for prescription drugs. There are doctors that write prescriptions. There are doctors that write bad prescriptions. I'm sure we've seen cases. So, you know, we're not going to have perfect monitoring here in the prescription market. Some doctors overprescribe drugs, and that gets dealt with accordingly. And if doctors want to prescribe medical marijuana because they think a patient needs it, I have no problem with that. My issue is one of the market structure. And so we have a prescription market. People go to drugstores, people get their prescriptions filled, and they buy them and take them home. I think you see some of the externality problems here by Councilman Galeotto is when you have a cash industry sitting there as a separate, kind of market, you get all kinds of issues there. And I don't think those issues would occur going into a drugstore. I haven't heard of any of the things that you've described here taking place in drugstores like Long's or Kaiser or something. So I'm willing to support some type of market where it's through a pharmacy and a legal prescription. I think that's appropriate for this. We've passed a law to suggest that. And, people resell drugs all the time. People do things with drugs they're not supposed to that are prescription. I mean, there's no perfect case here. But the point is we have a market there that works, and it's competitive. You can choose which drugstore you want to get your prescription at. You can choose your health care plan, and you can go pay for it, or in this case, if you were lucky to get Kaiser to do this, as someone mentioned, I assume you'd pay a lower price for the right to this. Pharmacists are trained doctors. I can't believe they can't figure out, some drugs. I don't find that believable. Pharmacists exist to make profits. If it's competitive, I have no problem with that because then people are going to decide which pharmacist is going to provide the best service for them. So I'd be more interested in going through that market channel that already exists as opposed to setting up a separate and what appears in some cases to be almost a monopoly on this, and so I'm not interested in supporting that. The other issue then is, if in terms of Mountain View, is a county issue. The issue here is people can't go to a different county, and so should there be something in Mountain View or something in Santa Clara County? And I would support that, but I'd also like to see our county supervisors support something in a system where it would be more open and competitive so that people would have choices. I think when people have more choices, we get better outcomes in the marketplace. So.
Councilman Murkowski-Zach.
To your far left.
Yeah, I know. Where is he going to be?
This actually reminds me of my first year on the council when I would sort of get out there in front of the other council and try and be on the one of a 6-1 vote. So I'm actually intrigued by Mountain View moving forward somehow. I got a couple of emails, most of us did. I only got one negative email. I'm surprised that we had no speakers here tonight to speak against Mountain View, at least looking into this issue. I am not prepared tonight to say yes to medical marijuana dispensaries in Mountain View. There are too many questions that I have that I feel that we need to get some answers to. They are issues around sort of the federal drug versus the California law. There are some issues around policing and public safety that I'm curious about. Zoning issues. I'll be honest, taxing issues. Is it a taxable sale? I don't know. I don't think prescription drugs are. I also have a really big concern about how much time it would take staff to do an objective analysis of some of these issues and present them to us so that we could really have an informed debate about this. But I've heard around the dais tonight, a number of issues, and I've listed off a couple of things that I know are all the sorts of things that would be of concern to us, and we don't really have any data on any of it. But as I think about it, I think there are creative ways of working to resolve them, And to me, one of the issues would be how do we do that at minimum, if not no cost to the taxpayer? I don't